A letter from Kropotkin by Peter Kropotkin, August 1920. This is from Volume 2 of Fighting for Freedom, Volume 2 of A Libertarian Reader, titled Fighting for Freedom, 1897 to 1936. Okay. This is translated by Ian McKay, who is the editor of this volume. And there's a little introduction by Ian McKay, and it says, after the February Revolution, Kropotkin returned to Russia after 5 decades of exile. Many revolutionaries visiting the Bolshevik regime sought his advice on events, including Emma Goldman, Alexander Berkman, and many syndicalist delegates to the Second Congress of the Communist International. This letter presents a short summary of his analysis of what had went wrong and how to save the revolution. It was first published after his death in Le Libertaire on the 22nd of July, 1921. It's in italics here. That's the end of the introduction, but I don't know. There's italics here that are... I don't know. I don't know what it means. Kropotkin was visited in his residence in the environs of Moscow by numerous foreign delegates. Kropotkin was often misled as to their quality, and many who were just socialists assumed an anarchist label in front of him. One of these, the Czechoslovak Hugo Zunenschein, obtained from the great libertarian theorist the following few lines which he is to bring to the awareness of the revolutionaries of his country. He was one of those who deceived Kropotkin over their quality. He was a Bolshevist, and the letter of the author, Autour d'une vie, Memoirs of a Revolutionist, and so many other admirable books did not sing the praises of the Bolshevik regime, was suppressed for more than 6 months. We have only known about it for a few days. We publish it in the hope that all our comrades will read it with pleasure and profit. So I guess that's the introduction from Le Libertaire. 1921. Or Le Libertaire, 1921. Comrades and friends, the last words proven beyond all doubt that in today's society it is absolutely mad to hope that a day will come when wars would become impossible as long as the present exploitation of labor by capital and backward nations by nations more advanced in industry continues to exist. As long as this exploitation lasts, wars will devastate humanity and hinder humanity's development. The 4-year war, which still continues, has confirmed once again that socialists of every shade have repeatedly stressed. What socialists of every shade have repeatedly stressed? As long as capital can buy the strength of labor and enrich itself by the toil of others, there will be internal wars. And what is true for a nation is also true for the society of peoples. The nation which precedes other nations in its economic development, or else only believes that they have proceeded, will inevitably seek to enrich themselves by force of arms. Under the present conditions, war will return, and their character, as we have seen recently, will be more and more ferocious, more and more abominable, and more disastrous for the generations to come. Under these conditions, the need for a profound reconstruction of society upon new bases, that is to say, for a social revolution, becomes more and more obvious. The bourgeoisie itself is beginning to realize it, and that is why it is absolutely essential for those who are most interested in reconstruction to discuss thoroughly the essential features of the changes in the structure of society, which it is a question of achieving. So far, the workers have had little interest in this kind of discussion. They did not believe in the possibility of an impending social revolution, but the workers must now see that they were wrong. Life itself, and above all the war, has imposed Reconstruction. The social revolution knocks at our doors. Furthermore, as you will undoubtedly learn when your delegates return from Russia, the attempt at a Jacobin social revolution, which has been taking place on a large scale for nearly 3 years, has not produced the results we were hoping to obtain. They will explain this failure by the war, which is still ongoing, but the cause is much deeper. The next paragraph is in italics, but I'm not sure these are Kropotkin's italics or not, but I'm going to assume they are. The revolution of November 1917 sought to establish in Russia a mixed regime of Babeuf's highly centralized authoritarian communism with Picquier's equally centralized collectivism. I don't know who Picquier is, which has been popularized in Europe for 40 years under the name of Marxism. And this attempt, it must be acknowledged, has certainly not given the results hoped for. The attempt to establish a highly centralized power, imposing the communist revolution by decrees and by armies of bureaucrats, employees, employees, or employé, and bracket, did not succeed. The usual vices of every centralized state gnaw away at this administration. The mass of the people is excluded from Reconstruction, and the dictatorial powers of the communist bureaucrats, bracket employé, and bracket, far from alleviating the evils, only aggregate the evils. It is therefore obvious that the workers of Central and Western Europe, particularly the Latin ones, when they know the results of the revolution in Russia, should look for more effective means of reaching their goals. Already in the First International, and they were studying, quote, public services in the future society, end quote, they sought the solution of the social problem by the socialization of production and exchange. But they wanted to get there not by the centralized state, but by the federation of free communes, the decentralization of production and exchange, and the awakening of the local initiative of groups of producers and consumers. In short, they studied the question of how to build the new society not by orders from the center, but by construction from the simple to the complex, always encouraging local and individual initiative instead of killing local and individual initiative by armies of functionaries who carry out the will of the center as best as those functionaries can. The experiment conducted in Russia has confirmed the need to develop these tendencies of autonomy and federalism, and it is in this direction that without doubt the efforts of the workers will head as soon as they delve into the great and difficult questions that confront every revolution, as had been done in the Federalist International. Brothers and friends of Western Europe, history has imposed a formidable task on your generation. It falls upon you to begin to apply the principles of socialism and to find practical forms. And it is upon you that falls the task of developing the new structures of a society where the exploitation of man by man, as well as classes, will have disappeared, and at the same time a society where, instead of the centralization which brings us oppression and wars, will develop 1,000 centers of life and constructive forces and free trade unions and independent communes. History pushes us in this direction. Well, let us courageously get to work. Let us break with the two prejudices of benefactor capital and the providence state. And in our groups and congresses, in our trade unions, and in our communes, we will find the necessary elements to build a new society, the society of labor and liberty, free from capital and the state, and from the cult of authority. Moscow, August 1920, Peter Kropotkin. Footnote: Kropotkin had given a longer account of his views to the British Labour delegation, which appeared as Message to the Workers of the Western World in Labour Leader on the 22nd of July 1920, included in Direct Struggle Against Capital. I think it's often translates Direct Action Against Capital, but I'm not sure. Both Alexander Berkman, Chapter 10, The Bolshevik Myth, Diary 1920-22, and Emma Goldman, Chapters 5 and 17 of My Disillusionment in Russia, later recounted their visits. And footnote, the end.